Today's show is brought to you by homebrewsupply.com. Homebrew Supply is your one-stop shop for brew day ingredients, recipes, equipment, and more. Take advantage of everyday low pricing and everyday flat rate shipping only at homebrewsupply.com. Go to homebrewsupply.com right now and use our promo code HHH to get 5% off your order. homebrewsupply.com. Let us help make your brew day better.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
I'm just messing up. Hello and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today I am joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com down there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Chief Keg Washer, of KegConnection.com, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
Good.
I muted the wrong channel at the top, so it was the intro music and then it wasn't, or it was I don't know what I was muting, but it's been a fun morning so far. We're actually recording this a day early because tomorrow we're going to be doing our live Q&A with Casey Hellwig from Imperial Yeast Company. Imperial Yeast. I don't think company is a part of the title, but Casey, she is so much fun. We got to meet her when we toured their campus. That's been like 3 years now, right? Or
That's
2 years.
Hard to believe.
It's 2 years, going on 3 years, I think. We were there for HomebrewCon Portland, and they welcomed us in, and we interviewed Owen. Casey is going to do the proper show as well, not just the live Q&A. We're going to schedule a date for that, but tomorrow, which when you're listening to this, Thursday the 27th is when she's going to be doing the live Q&A at 1 p.m. for all members of our Patreon, any level. When you join, you get a link for our private Facebook group. You can come watch it then at 1 p.m. Central. If you don't do Facebook, like some crazy people, then you can send me a reply and I'll get you a link so that you can watch the live stream still. And you may not be able to enter your question live if I'm not paying attention, which is probable. But I'll make sure that it gets to Casey at some point. We've already had, guys, a ton of questions come in. I forgot to share that doc with y'all, but I shared it with Casey. Thank God, that's the important one. So she could see the preliminary questions coming in. But real good questions on yeast that some of them we've taken or looked at and discussed on the show as like similar, but having someone who's an expert will go a long way for us helping get answers to our audience. Yes. And like I said, Casey, she knows her stuff. She's been with Imperial for a while up there in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm looking forward to that. Also, what we have going on for this month, you still have, if you join our $50 tier, you still have time to get this month's recipe kits, which is a choice between the Bob Toots Cream Ale, which my pop and I just brewed, and I'm looking forward. We're going to keg it this weekend. We put it in secondary. I got flack for putting it in secondary. People are like, what do you do secondary? You're going to oxidize it. Okay. Well, I like clear beer, man. I like clear beer.
I do too.
So it was between the Bob Toots Cream Ale or the Ocarina Grapefruit IPA, which is also a delicious recipe. So if you want to get in on that, you can still join at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, or you can wait. If you do the $35 level, which is every other month, if you join now, you'll get an option for next month's recipes, which we just finalized yesterday. And it's between a Guinness clone. It's called, on homebrewsupply.com, it's called Genius. It's a dry Irish stout. And then the, oh, goodness gracious. Oh, pumpkin ale is the second option. That's right. Joe helped me pick them out. Both. I haven't done a pumpkin ale before. I don't know. I
hadn't either.
It comes with pumpkin spice. That seems like it'd be all right. It seems like it'll, it is that getting to be that time, which reminds me how fast this year is going. As crazy as this year has been, it's flying by, man. Because it's when Joe was like, "Oh, maybe we could offer them a pumpkin ale," and I was like, "A pumpkin ale?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, because it's going to be for September, and then they'll be drinking it like October." Oh, that's brilliant. That's a great idea. And so my dad and I are going to do we're gonna do the pumpkin ale later this month, but we're brewing this weekend on the Spite Solo, that Guinness clone. I think my dad would prefer the stout. We haven't had a stout on tap in a while. We haven't had a stout on tap since the breakfast stout, which was late last year. So it'll be,
wow.
I know. And hopefully we can get back on the right track with brewing decent beer. The cream ale is really hard to mess up. I'm saying that now. I'm just jinxed myself. Knocked on wood that it didn't oxidize.
No, that's true. It's about the easiest beer you can brew.
Yeah.
So did you, when you seem worried that now that you oxidated it, but did you purge the secondary with CO2, and then how did you transfer it in?
I didn't purge it because we had this. I showed you you don't get that smug smirk off your face.
Oh, I didn't know people did it without purging the.
We purged the keg when we transferred a keg. I don't know why I've never purged the glass carboys when we do secondary.
Super easy. You just
I know.
Stick something down in there and turn it on, and hold your hand over it, and let it vent for a while.
I agree, and from now on I will. It wasn't a closed transfer per se. It was a gravity transfer with an auto siphon.
I realize that. What I'm saying is, even if you're doing a gravity transfer, it would greatly benefit you to purge the secondary. I mean, a closed transfer is even better, but
yes.
It would really help to purge the vessel first.
I agree. And we all, at Ketchinetch, you carry the stuff for the closed transfers, so there's no reason I shouldn't just bring that home. Buy it first, obviously.
And I would say, when you're transferring into a secondary, and you're going down to the bottom of the secondary, and you're filling from the bottom, it's not like you're splashing the beer all over the place and oxygenating it. The only oxygen is at the very, very top. You get your secondary filled, and you still got some activity in the beer. You put an airlock on it. What's left in there is almost certainly going to come out. You don't necessarily oxygenate your beer by using the secondary, even if you don't purge it, even if you use a transfer. I know there's going to be some people that are going to argue with me about this, and I've been called an idiot before, so I don't mind.
Oh, that's the story of my life.
I really don't think that you oxygenate it unless you were letting the beer like
splash
slam into the bottom and splash.
Right, which we weren't, but I think the ribbing comes from it not being closed. So we also, when it's cooler weather, we'll do all our at brew day at stuff outside under a covered pavilion, but it's still open air. And the comments on those are just gold. Like, outside, outside. What kind of
are you crazy?
What kind of peasant brewing is this outside? I'm like, you want to try my cardboard cream ale? Like, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Or what's the one that causes Band-Aid taste, like phenyl? Oh, now I'm going to mess it up. It's that phenolic infection. Phenols. Yeah. But anyway, so yes, my dad and I, we're looking forward to he's getting his place prepped for that Spite Solo, which is just getting the right converter. We kind of talked about it last week, how I would just wish there was one standard, like this is what 220 is, and everybody uses the same thing, and you just plug into it. But he's going to make the cable.
One of these days, I'll show you how many 220 variations there are. It's almost unbelievable.
Is that just something in our country, or is that like everywhere? And I'm talking
about just in our country. If you take it from everywhere, then I could show you a lot more. I'm just talking about in our, because you have everything from even very small plugs that are 220 air conditioner plugs. So I'll show you sometime on a chart. It's unbelievable. But I guess, and we're going to do something a little different today, right? We're actually going to try to do 4 questions instead of 3, because we want to maybe cut out a little small talk and get more meat in here, right?
Todd is the biggest critic of this show. He listens and first off, I want everyone to who doesn't follow us on Instagram to know I won that $5 bet about the voicemail call.
But that's what I was saying. I think we should get right to the questions.
See, I won that $5 bet. I didn't get video of him actually paying me the $5, but I got it. I collected. Oh,
what do you mean? You took video. I saw you.
I know, not of the $5 part. I took video of the other part. This is your $5. I had you sign it. I'm framing it. It's I won for once. I'm not giving that. Actually, I'm keeping it in my wallet for the next bet I lose. Because
I like how you put the screenshot of the episode line.
Yeah,
playing
you know,
Todd's car.
Yeah, you know what's best too? the first call we ever took was from the same Marty who we took on last week's show. The same Marty.
Obviously, Marty, I didn't remember you from the first one.
The same Marty won me $5. Yeah. It felt so good. But yes, Todd is right. He was listening, and I think he was a little bitter, and he goes, why do we do small talk for? Let's just go. This is stupid. It's really stupid. But the last part of small talk, which I'll segue us into the questions. Today, technically, we're going to have 5 questions because Todd got a kick out of this. Our buddy Walter, who just joined our Patreon, he wrote me in and he said, love your guys' show so much that I decided to join the Patreon at the $50 level. I received the welcome package, and I'm so glad that you changed the t-shirt design, which is the one I'm wearing right here, and to compare to basically what Todd has on over there.
Todd changed the t-shirt.
Yeah, Todd, and he goes, I was sweating so bad in that design with the logo covering the whole front. Like that, Todd's only complaint was, it's like your freaking sweat machine, man. You walk around and you just sweat. That's all I do. And
I feel like I'm in high school wrestling again every time I wore it. And plus, it's like half polyester too, right?
It is. So it's a blend. Yeah,
like half polyester with a giant trash bag on the front.
But here's why I say we might have 5 questions. His question is about the keg and fermenter labels that come in every welcome pack. He goes, I assume they are supposed to be rewritable. What should I use to write and erase with? Walter, they're not rewritable. They look that way. They're not made that way when we made them with stickeru.com, which I think they're still a company. I don't know. When they rescinded their sponsorship, they're dead to me. No, I'm kidding. But I'm kidding. No. I'm totally kidding. They're very nice people, I'm sure. But they sold them as one and dones. And Todd's complaint when I was telling him about it was, you have a hard time peeling them off, according to you, right, Todd? I've never had issue with some soap and water.
Well, full disclosure, I've never actually tried because I just looked at them and I was like, I'm not putting that on my keg. I'll never get that damn thing off.
Oh, so you just lied to me when you're like, it's hard to get them off when you don't even know. You have no idea if it's hard to get them off.
It was an assumption. So it's not hard to get them off?
No, I haven't had a problem getting them off. My dad and I don't use them every batch, but we need to because it just confused us last week when I dumped the Kolschweiss a couple weeks ago. And obviously, like when sometimes in the kegerator, the lines get a little twisted up and, it just takes a little bit extra time to go, oh, what's in that keg? Poor taste, unhook the liquid. Oh, nothing's pouring.
I mean, you don't put a label on your keg at all?
No,
like I always put
know.
a tag on there.
I know.
Starting gravity and final.
I know. And from going forward, though, and we have a ton of those keg labels. And to let you know, Walter, they're not rewritable. You could try them and let us know. But I send them out like people on our $35 and our $50 who get recipe kits. I send out a half a dozen extras, like every other recipe kit, or twice a year. Like last year we sent a few out, and sometimes people in our Patreon will ask, "Hey, can you send some more out?" And we have no problem because Sticker U. How many labels would y'all say we have in my office there at headquarters? 5,000. We have. If you need labels, guys, please let me know. We'll send them out with the recipe kit. They don't add to shipping. So with that out of the way, Mr. Burns, you're right. We do have 4 questions for this show. We're going to see how it goes. The small talk has been cut down to, it's only been like 12 minutes. That is a record. So let's get it right into it. Our first question comes from Ethan, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Ethan wrote, I just transferred the Dos Equis Amber clone into a keg to lager for a few months, and I wondered if it would be possible to carbonate at the same time. Would lagering while under pressure present any issues or slow down the lagering process? Would you recommend waiting to the last few weeks to start carbonating? Thanks, Ethan. That's a good question because I know fermenting under pressure is a big topic right now in homebrew forums. Some people are saying, oh, if you start the fermentation process under pressure, you can shorten the lagering process and still get that clear beer and that good lagering. But he's talking about what potential issues it might bring up. So let's kick it off to you,
I'm
Todd.
ready to do the first question now that we're doing 4.
Go for it.
Yes, no, it doesn't matter.
James, please elaborate because this is going to be a 22-minute show.
Well, I can tell you what we do. When we're doing the lagering process, we go ahead and hook it up. We have the equipment for it. We have the spike conical, which turns into a bright tank. And we go ahead and connect the gas. I don't think it affects anything once primary fermentation's been done. It doesn't hurt at all to have it carbonating while it's conditioning. And I think we've seen evidence of that because every time we do a lager, now we do it in the spike. There's two conicals in the brew room. There's the bigger Blinkman that we use for bigger batches, and then we have, but you cannot use it for carbonation. And then we have the spike, which is good for, I think, up to 15 psi. I think it's got a 15 psi blow off safety valve on it.
That's right. And Blinkman is coming out with one that will.
Oh,
do that.
yeah, that's
I'm
right.
not sure if they have yet or not, but I know they're going.
Their advertising says coming soon.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know. I got a questionnaire. I think y'all probably did too on what size you would prefer. And I think they had 7, and then they had like a 15-gallon. And I answered, of course, 15-gallon.
Or 20, yeah.
Yeah.
Or 17
Or a barrel.
Why not?
Well, I wonder if I bet it's holds 17 or 18, but it's 4 15-gallon batches probably.
I believe
right?
so, yeah.
Yeah.
So you could do a double batch or triple batch, but I think it's just fine. I think if you have the equipment to do that, more power to you. Go ahead and get it. Might as well have it carved when it's conditioning, and then that's just one less step to do.
I'll tell you something else too, is as you're letting it condition and you need to like try the beer. Wow, it's so nice to actually, I always like to taste it a few times and kind of look at it, see how it's clarifying. It's always nice to try that beer as you're doing that, and it's already carbonated.
Oh, that's awesome.
We've had some issues. There are some issues involved with it, though, I should bring up. I've noticed that when I have it in my secondary and it's carbonated and I'm able to taste it, that sometimes it becomes a dispensing unit and I don't have that much beer left over by the time it's done.
Yeah, and
I have the same problem. I don't know what the hell's going on.
And you kind of misspoke, because not secondary is in air quotes there, because it's all happening in one vessel. Your whole fermentation. You're not doing any transferring until you're kegging.
No.
Like you're doing all your fermentation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just calling it a secondary because I'm cold crashing it and doing what you would do normally in a secondary.
Right, but what I was getting at is that's the benefit of those kinds of units. Is it all happen? Like the people giving me flack about the oxidation potential when I'm transferring and whatnot wouldn't be possible in one vessel like that, because
That's correct.
because it's not going anywhere. And
Plus, you can harvest the yeast after primary fermentation, because Spike was smart enough to put a bigger valve. So the valve is it's so big that when it's open, the yeast will accumulate in that little down tube. I like it. I think it's
well, that's
really
how
good
you
design.
harvested for that Kolsch, right? That you used for 5 generations, I think, of yeast. And we're gonna bring that up too tomorrow with Casey on the live Q&A. Like,
Don't give him my name.
What are your thoughts about James Carlson at CM Becker International harvesting yeast? Hey, so I kind of added to his question, but do you guys, when y'all lager, do you ever do the fermentation side of things under pressure, or have you never messed with that?
No, I've never messed with it.
Todd? No? Okay. Because again, that's like kind of, if you go, I'm very green with it, and I say that about everything, but it's true. I'm very green with the concept of it. But my understanding is people are trying to do that to shorten the fermentation process. And allegedly they're having good results. So that might be, Todd he was complimenting, we were talking about other podcasts, and Brewlosophy came up, and he goes, dude, the best thing about Brewlosophy is their experiments. They're so cool. I go on their site all the time and read the articles. They have a ton of contributors doing tons of different experiments any given week. He was like, we should do, we won't call it experiment. They probably have that trademark by now. But we would like it would be nice every once in a while to do some of these concepts in a video format to capture, just for our own benefit too, because I would never have thought to ferment under pressure. Like why do that? It doesn't seem like it would accomplish anything. But
what's happened? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's what a lot of times they use the term natural carbonation. That's what they're doing.
Got it. Okay. And what were you going to say, Todd, before you rudely interrupted?
Oh, no. No, I was when they say I didn't know if they meant the entire process. So to do that, you're creating so much CO2 that you'd have to have a pressure relief valve, because it's not going into a blow. It's not going into a blow off tube, or wouldn't have a bubbler, obviously, or wouldn't pressurize. So I guess you would have to have something that released at a certain PSI to be able to do that. I haven't.
Yeah, what they call that, I believe, is a splending valve.
Yep.
And it's got a adjustable pressure release and a gauge and a safety.
Yeah, I have to show you, Todd, because some of these guys are doing it with like those John Guest connections, and then the Spunding, I'm not German, the Spunding valve. And like James said, I mean, it's this whole contraption that are apparently real affordable to have and to make. And I say, I don't know if the John Guest is just because a lot of people too talk about a trend right now in home brewers. They're all about those, what does Kedland call them though? Because I'm used to seeing them as John Guest, and they're like, no, they're duo-type. That's what they're called.
Yeah, duo-type. Yeah.
Duo-type. But they've been around forever though. It's like,
yeah,
I know. It's funny.
It is funny. But anyway, I totally digress. But Ethan, yes. Yeah, well, let's get to the last part. Is there any difference? It's in secondary for his lagering and going under pressure. Would you wait to the last few weeks to start carbonating, or as soon as it's in secondary, do y'all feel comfortable with the carbonation process?
I already answered the question.
Yeah, I'd say go for it.
It's a wrap up. It's a wrap up because
it does. I don't think it matters.
Because I digress so much, I had to wrap it up. So Ethan, thank you so much for submitting your question. Great time to remind you all that when we take your question on a show, whether it be through the submission form or on our number 325-305-6107, I give you $25 gift card to kegconnection.com, courtesy of Mr. Burns. Thank you, sir, for your support of the show. Question number 2 comes from Chuck Van Roy. He was very nice to tell me how to pronounce that last name in his email. He used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Chuck wrote, love the show. My question, I brewed a dry Irish stout Guinness, and I want to put it on beer gas to serve with the CMB stout faucet. I've been looking on the web to figure out the carbonation process. Do I carb as normal, or do I lightly carb first at like 30 PSI for 24 hours and then put it on nitro? Do I need to let out any of the pressure in the keg before doing the nitro? What are the steps for this process? As you can tell, this is my first nitro. From first carbing to then serving. Thanks, and keep up the great work you all do. And he emphasized all, but I think he meant me. But he did emphasize all. That all,
I'm sure he meant you.
I think he meant most of the time they do. Chuck, wish I could help you, but this is James. This is your side.
I'm going to pass that to Todd because I am not the carbonation king, as we all well know.
You caught on.
All right. I was afraid this was going to come to me. I hate these nitro questions, but I will answer it as best as I can. So if you'll carefully research this on the web, you will find about 40 different answers to it. But I'll give you my answer, and that's that you're always served like Guinness or anything like that. It's always served with a beer, with a mixture. So it's going to be 75-25, 70-30, and that's going to be the larger number will always be the nitrogen, and the smaller number will always be the CO2. Because you've got a small amount of CO2 in there, normally what people do is they'll actually carbonate it at a higher PSI and actually serve it typically at a higher PSI, because you don't have to, these types of beers are better not super carbonated. Guinness is kind of known for that. But what happens is when you run it through that faucet, it's gonna break out the CO2 anyway, and any nitrogen that has come in, and it's being pushed with the nitrogen. So the nitrogen is going to give it that really nice cascadey head, and the CO2 is going to give it the carbonation. But a lot of the carbonation is going to get knocked out of it when it goes through the faucet, and that's kind of the process. That's what you're trying to do. Somebody's probably going to disagree with me on this, but you're never going to go to a bar and get a nitrogen served beer where you have a lot of fizz to it, a lot of carbonation to it. I mean, that's kind of the point, is to knock everything out, lay the nitrogen in, have that nice cascading head, and then the quality or the mouthfeel of the nitrogen head and those nitrogen bubbles are kind of replace the CO2, but you still got to have some CO2 in there. It would be really, really flat. So
yeah,
I would carbonate it. I would force carbonate it at a higher PSI, but not, and there's two ways to do that. You could leave it for a long time at like 30 PSI, or you could even turn it up more than that and force carbonate it and then try it a few times and make sure you kind of get it where you want it. And when you're pushing it through that nitrogen using the beer gas, then you just kind of have to experiment with it a little bit to see where you like it. And that's how you would do it. I have done some nitrogenated coffee, and with nitrogenated coffee, you don't want any CO2. It destroys the flavor. But with beer, you do. And I haven't served a lot of nitrogenated beer, but it's people overcomplicate it. Experiment around, and you'll come up with a good pour that I think that you'll enjoy. I like nitrogenated beer. Some people don't like them because they're too flat, but I actually like it. So,
well, and flat,
I do too.
Is flat flat is the right word, but it might give the wrong image in their head, because it's a whole different experience when you have it on nitro, where what is that one that we love from Left Hand? Not the melt stout. Well, the melt stout too.
The nitro milk stout.
What was that other stout they used to do that we had on tap there at HomebrewCon, or maybe it was CBC? Wait the Dead. That's a coffee shop. What it's something dead. You don't remember that nitro? Because we had it at Great American Beer Festival at their booth. That's what it was in 2013 or 2014 when we went, and they had a nitro version on tap, and they had the CO2 version. But like you said, like you're right, they do their melt stout. They serve it both ways as well. They distribute it commercially both ways, where it is a difference in presentation, right? How it tastes. The mouth feels specifically, like you said, and also it's just smooth is like the best way I can describe it. It's a very smooth experience on nitro. It is nice.
Well, it's funny in the bottle too. I have to, I was at Rob Bros, a friend of mine.
Oh, yeah.
We were at his house one day, and he had bought a 6-pack of those. And the instructions basically say that you're supposed to grab the bottle, take your glass, and then turn the bottle completely upside down and let it pour out.
Yeah.
And he has a really nice house there.
Yeah.
And I was standing probably over his carpet, knowing me.
Yeah.
And I turned that bottle upside down, and he was like, "What the hell are you doing, Burns?" And he was just expecting foam to shoot out and go everywhere. And that beer poured, and he's like, "What the hell is that?"
Oh my gosh.
Like, you bought it.
Yeah. How many freaking beers were we all in already? Because that makes the difference in the story too. Like for his freak out level, we were 10 beers in, and he thought I was.
I think we had switched. We sometimes start out with whiskey drinks, and we may have switched over to beer.
Dude, you've got the perfect setup there. Why don't we do well? First off, that second kegerator you had with the tea tower, what became of it? Did you take it back somewhere?
No, it's in my.
Why
it's
don't
there? I still
it's in the shop.
Well, can we make that one? Can I make that one a stout like serving station?
It doesn't matter. We can do it on the main one too. It's easy.
Okay, I just didn't know if you had the room. Oh yeah, I know
we
you
have.
the room.
Right now we've got 3 regulators in there, but they're all coming off the same tank. All we'd have to do, we have plenty of room. We just put a nitro, or it's actually a mixed gas tank regulator, and we can do it no problem. Let's try it. Let's do that. It's still pretty hot here, but I think we could start thinking about brewing a stout or a porter and nitrogenating it. Let's do that, and we'll go through the process, and maybe we can answer the question a little better after we've
do the video.
I haven't done it for a long time.
Well, I wish. So I realized when I placed an order, and I paid for it. Well, I think technically Homebrew Happy Hour paid for it, but it got paid for the dry stout, the Guinness clone that I took home. But I realized we're on the Spike Solo. And this first batch is a 5-gallon batch. Don't yell at me, Todd. Don't get mad at me, Todd. I brought home only a 5-gallon batch. So I was going to say this would have been perfect for me to brew a 10-gallon. 5 gallons would have been with me being served on CO2, and I could have brought 5 gallons up and served on nitro. But that's a hypothetical. That's not going to happen. But we could always brew it again.
So you just brewed 5 gallons?
No, I only brought it.
Paid for it?
No. Oh, I think like
that's a gray area.
In the Marxist form of collectivism, I think we paid for it. I think. So I think it got paid for.
Hold on, I'm making notes.
It got paid for by somebody, not directly to you, but it sort of, I contributed a little bit. I think some people tune in and they enjoy me or they tolerate me. I don't know how, but somehow I did contribute to it. But because what Chut's talking about is the exact recipe that my dad and I are going to brew. And it is one of the Patreon recipes this month. And I think that would be a perfect thing to put on your kegerator on nitro. We could brew it up there. Zach has been in the office. We have a Zach who used the submission form that we're going to get to here in a little bit. But Zach at the office was talking about wanting to brew again. We could have him use the Grainfather, do a 5-gallon batch, and then put it on your.
No, we might as well do.
Oh, yeah. If you got the. Yeah. Well, I thought he took the.
We don't do.
No, but I thought
batches.
Zach took home the Grainfather. He just brews up there. I thought he brewed on the Grainfather when he brews.
I don't know, but I don't want to do a 5-gallon batch.
Well, then he.
See, the sharing thing is difficult for you, I think.
Chuck,
I think if you brewed a 15-gallon batch and then you brought one to James, one to me,
I need a 15-gallon.
You both a keg, and you can have 3 different kinds of beer.
I know. I need a 15-gallon setup. The Spite Solo is the 10-gallon setup. I don't have a way to brew 15 unless I do a double brew day.
We have 2 of them sitting around right now. Or we have at least 1 complete system sitting around.
It's just sitting around. What do you mean?
Just sitting around, buddy.
No, I thought. No. We're trying to get James brewing at his. You're not going to brew at your house.
We will, but we're going to have to build it. We're going to end up having to build another system before then.
The good systems for James. I got it. Okay. Is this version 1?
Good. I'm glad you were clear on that.
Is this version 1, James? Is that sitting around? I didn't know where that one was sitting around.
It works fine.
It's the one, the first controller I built, the bigger controller.
That's a good one. That used to be a Todd.
It's got the
There's
absolutely nothing wrong with it, and we have 3 kettles that we're not. We're going to end up not using. So
I think the cabinet needs to be repainted. I think I could gut the lid and repaint it and make it look like a shiny diamond.
Oh, nobody cares what it looks like. My dad is listening to this, sweating bullets because he knows I'm going to be pitching this to him now.
Yeah, just tell him to get a stainless steel table.
I'm just going to tell him I'm going to bring one. I'm just going to bring.
I just built a table. It worked fine too.
Did you really?
Oh yeah, it's even nicer because it's tiled.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Oh no, my dad's
in trouble. Stable too. Your dad's gonna love this.
I will say this.
He's gonna love it.
I think we had a great time brewing on the foundry, mainly because we were inside air conditioning. It was a beautiful thing to be able to brew and not be dripping sweat and dying from the Texas sun. But anyways, I'm digressing again. Chuck.
Next beer. Next
beer and next question came from our buddy Douglas P., who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Douglas wrote, "Hey Josh, I love dark beers like porters and think they taste best with a bit of age on them. I just recently had an issue with a bottle bomb that thankfully didn't maim my mother-in-law, even though it was a couple of feet from her and had the top of the bottle ricochet off of my ceiling. I have a keg set up, but I still want to age. Any suggestions on how to do that without the risk of explosions? I think I am done bottling after that." Douglas, I understand. When Imperial used to have cans and I think this is why they switched. I don't think me specifically, but I think they realized the issue there. My dad and I, we didn't follow the instructions on the can. Our fault. Not blaming Imperial. I'm not going to bring it up tomorrow to you, Casey, and try to have any kind of liability on y'all. Just had to say. We let it warm up too much. And so by the time it was ready to pitch it, the thing was way too warm. And I go and I just barely touch it and I got cut on the lip. It was gash everywhere. Explosions. I would never, if any other manufacturer made them in cans, I'd probably never use a can of yeast ever again because I was traumatized from it. A bottle bomb? Those things, ask Todd, they scare the hell out of me when we bought.
Oh God, he's so worried about it. And you know what? The beers that we bottled.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember, but I actually called Joe and I was like,
"Yeah,
Joe, I haven't bottled for years, and I'm a little worried because my final gravity was super low, and I don't know how much activity I have left. I'm afraid I'm going to pour this priming sugar in here. There's not going to be enough yeast left to even carbonate it." He's like, "Nah, it'll be fine. Just try it." And it carbonated the crap out of those things. So they are bottle bombs. If you take one and barely slam it down, it'll shoot. Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
No, I know. When I took him with me to the beach, I was opening them like this, like far away from me. But we have one left, actually. Your beer did not last long, dude. I loved it. That was the one my dad didn't care for, but I love that. And I actually had some when I was just up there. I had a lot of your beer when I was just up there earlier this week. The lemon drop, which reminds me, James, the lemon drop Pilsner. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah, mine's out.
You got to go over to Todd's. You got to hang out with us. You got to come hang out with us when I'm up there. But all right, so let's get to his question. So bottle bombs, yes. Obviously, in the things that homebrewers do, there's always a little bit of risk. I've never heard, guys, of a keg exploding from aging or it being an issue. Is that
I don't think he's talking about a keg, though.
Well,
he's not talking about a keg.
Well,
keg has a pressure relief valve on it.
Well, he literally said, "How can I still age without the risk of explosion?" He says, "I have a keg setup. I want to age. How can I do that without the risk of explosion?"
Okay, I thought my understanding from the question, and I could be wrong, is that he wants to take some out of the keg and age it separately. But I mean, if he wants to age in the keg, then he just needs to leave it in the keg.
Yeah, he's good to go. It's got a safety valve.
But I don't think that's what I think. What he's saying is he wants to take some out and he wants to drink some, but he wants to age some. And I don't really know of any way you could do that without putting it in a bottle or some other container that's could likely over carbonate. But it's not going to over carbonate because you've already brewed it. It's already in a keg. You're transferring it into a bottle at this point. You're not going to get a bunch more carbonation while it's aging. I've never had an issue like that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so then, like in your hypothetical, you're saying he has it in the keg using a counter pressure bottle filler or a Blitzman beer gun to a bottle to age those. That's what.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to increase in carbonation, especially if he keeps it cold.
Definitely want to keep it cold.
That was going to be my second question: was what temperature, not cellar temps, or like what kind of?
Well, like the bottles you're talking about, they're probably still getting some carbonation. My fridge was full. James finally took his keg yesterday. I'm going to put all those bottles in the fridge so it stops the process completely. I mean, it's probably not still carbonated because they've been long.
I was sleeping next to bottle bombs when I was up there.
Oh, yeah. Like 48 of them. I was trying to figure out some way to agitate them while you were sleeping.
You jerk. Are you kidding me?
I mean, I hate to lose a beer, but having 3 or 4 of those go off while you were asleep would have been, what was it, like the MasterCard commercial?
Oh, my gosh.
Priceless.
When I took up that beer from Casey, who, oh, man, I got to get him back his keg. There's a customer who lives in our area. This is how good a customer service I provide, by the way. Douglas, we're getting to your question. I'm digressing once again. He had a problem with the racetrack keg, so we were like, you know what? Let me just take it up there with us, fix it, and I'll bring it back to you. No problem at all. He agreed on it. He sent me with a bottle of rum barrel-aged porter. Oh. Dude, James, you should have hung out with us. It was
so
incredible. But the whole drive up, Todd, I was like, this is gonna blow up on me. I know my luck. This is gonna explode on me. I'm sure Casey is safe and it was great, but it's been aging for a year and some change. It's gonna blow up on me. It didn't, and it tasted delicious. So maybe I'll stop being such a wussy about stuff. But so you're saying, so if he kegs first. And then if Douglas kegs first and then transfers, there won't be extra carbonation issues, right, James? You're confident in that?
That's right. I mean, you have to have when you're bottling normal bottling procedure, like I'm an expert on it, is you have to introduce some kind of fermentable sugar to let the carbonate inside the bottle. Well, if you've got it kegged and carbonated and you want to put some with a beer gun in some bottles to store, yeah, there's nothing left. You're done.
And then on the flip side, like y'all were saying, if he actually meant I want to age in a keg, that's as simple as just transferring to the keg, carbonate, and then letting it sit for the amount of time that you want to age it, correct?
Yeah. Just make sure that you've purged the keg and that you don't have any oxygen left in it. You want to. What I would do if I was going to leave it in there a long time is I would actually run CO2 down the liquid dip tube to the bottom and pull the vent and have pressure coming in so that you're sure that you're purging everything out of there and all you have in there is CO2.
If it's a ball lock keg, let me recommend to y'all if you have threaded lines, put that liquid disconnect on. Don't use the gas disconnect on the liquid side. It'll save you a headache of trying. We've had people write in, they're like, man, I accidentally put my liquid or my gas disconnect on the liquid or vice versa, and I can't get it off. If you have threaded lines, that resolves that. You just put the
MFL, yeah.
MFL, thank you.
Yeah.
MFL lines with MFL disconnects have been my godsend because we've done that before. Well, on that kegger Happy Little Hops, when it was getting clawed, instead of pulling it out and cutting it, we would just blast some CO2 down there. And, when you put the gas disconnect on the liquid side, it's kind of a pain to get off. So my dad, it was like, we're both so dumb, and it was a genius moment where he's like, why don't we put the right disconnect on the gas line? Like, oh, Dad, you're brilliant, man. That's what we should do. Yes. So,
why do you use the exact same voice for your dad as you do for me?
Oh, it's my generic boomer making fun of, in my day, we did this. No, my dad, I'm trying to do, I can't do impersonation of my dad. He listens to this. He'll kick my ass. He did a good job.
Somebody needs to.
He did a good job when I was a kid of instilling the fear where on paper, I should be able to beat him up. But in my head, I'm like, don't start. And old people fight dirty. Y'all don't fight clean. He would shoot me. I'm pretty confident he would.
Any advantage, right?
Any advantage. Yeah.
That's because if we ever, and I haven't been in a fight in like 30 years, and I don't plan on getting in one. But if I did get in a fight with my, cardiovascular back, all these other issues, I have to win in the first 45 seconds.
That sounds like my sex life. Anyway. Douglas. So yeah, unfortunately, none of us have ever actually aged any beers, to my knowledge. Maybe, Joe had a barley wine that he brewed with a buddy before he moved there. And he told me like a year later that he finally tried it and it was delicious. I think, barley wines and porters, stouts, those lend themselves better to age. And maybe not the dry Irish stout, but like maybe we could do a real high gravity, rum type of, or some, kind of Scotch ale.
Yeah, you don't want to age a Kolsch, right, Josh?
No. I thought that Kolschweizen, if before dumping it, if we would have let it sit for another 9 months, it would have mellowed out, man. It would have been great. Or what was that beer that Kenny and I brewed that was supposed to be a hopped rye IPA?
It did not get better with age, I can absolutely assure you.
No. Disgusting. So anyways, Douglas, thank you so much for submitting your question. We've got one more for this week's show. Came from our buddy Zach, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. And Zach wrote, "Hey guys, I love your show. Unfortunately, I do not have the means of lagering, but graduating from a German town, my love for Oktoberfest is through the roof. I was wondering, is it feasible to use an Oktoberfest, Marzen, or Fest beer recipe kit and use ale yeast and ferment at the lowest temperature I can get, which is around 65 degrees? Thank you, Florida weather. And would this compromise the taste too much? Thank you for your thoughts." Zach, I'm also going to take your question to Casey on the live Q&A that we're doing,
idea.
Because I think her insight would be probably better than ours. But what do y'all think? Because I also we have Patreon members who have gotten lager recipe kits from us, but specifically asked for either the Kvik or some other kind of ale, like a German ale yeast strain. And they've all said it turned out great. Maybe I need to interview them more about, well, what did you notice different compared to how that style maybe should taste? But
yeah,
what do you think?
You can definitely do it. I mean, you can do it, and it's going to be a little bit different taste, but it's not necessarily going to be bad. I mean, the beer is the wort and the yeast don't know they're supposed to be a lager. So you're going to be making an ale basically, but with the same ingredients that you would normally use to make a lager. So you can certainly do it. I think it's a life priority issue that he has here. I think that he needs, what he really needs is something to lager in, right? Because, you can lager in anything. So like if you've got an old chest freezer you're not using, you've got an old fridge in your garage, you could put that keg into anything that you can get the temperature down in. If you're going to take a lager recipe and you're going to make an ale, why not just make an ale for the most part? But having said that, try it. I mean, try it and see if you like it. There's no perfect answer because it's going to be different on every style of lager. So the Oktoberfest may be pretty damn good with an ale yeast, and a Pilsner may not be pretty good. And I'm not saying that because that's true of one or the other. I'm just saying you're going to have to experiment. You're the one that likes Oktoberfest. Try it, see how you like it, and see if you can really tell much of a difference.
Well, so he specifically mentioned Marzen and Fest beer because those are what is served at Oktoberfest. And correct me if I'm wrong, y'all were telling me, I think Fest beer is kind of the main one now being served, right? Like even
Marzen's not served. As far as I know, it's not served at all anymore. It's Fest beer.
Wow. So if he brewed is there a ale equivalent, James, to a Marzen or a Fest beer that the recipe builds similar, but it's meant for an ale yeast that would go, yeah, maybe that would be closer to what you're trying to accomplish? Or are they so unique because they are lagers and, it's just worth doing the experimentation of doing that recipe kit with an ale yeast strain?
I would say if you look at the fermentables, because I brewed an Oktoberfest Friday, and looking at the grain bill, it was somewhere between a brown ale and a amber ale, but the hop schedule was a little different, and of course the lager yeast. But if you remember, we did a Sam Adams summer ale about 3 or 4 years ago, and I used some dry lager yeast. I did a starter, and we fermented that at room temp, and it turned out fantastic.
I do. That was a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Like right a year, not even a year after you had started, I think, because you also did that on the Grainfather, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, that was the beer. If you remember, guys, we had that in a keg in a week drinking it.
I wish I could go. Well, maybe that also would be something worth doing again. Because what was it that caused you to want to use the dry lager yeast as opposed to an ale strain?
Well, it was just something we had at the time on hand. So I think this was pre-imperial yeast, and we had some of that. I think it was Safe Lager.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember it was just the German strain of lager yeast, and I just wanted to try and see Clay. Y'all remember our friend Clay? He kept telling me all the time, just use lager yeast at room temp, it'll work, and he was right. It did.
We gotta get him back on the show, man. Sometimes he says things you'll relay it, and I'm like, really? And then you're like, and it was perfect. It worked out exactly how it's supposed to.
He's your engineer, yeah.
It turns out Clay's a lot smarter than me. Who would have thought? He's
wicked smart.
He's wicked smart, my buddy. What was that? Oh gosh, the Matt Damon movie. Golly, now it's gonna bother me. The Good Will Hunting. Thank you. Yeah. How do you like these apples? Yeah. I have to just digress on each question. That's the theme of today's show. Like you said, Todd, I think lagering, it does come down to space management, not space management. You were like, oh, if you have just a chest freezer lying around, nobody has that, Todd. Nobody has a chest freezer just lying around. And right now, unfortunately, because of COVID, they're hard.
A lot of people have fridges in their garages, though. I've got
a lot cheaper. Listen to me. I've got a cheaper fix for that. If you don't want a fridge, you can just get you an igloo cooler, a pump, and some ice, and put a cooling coil in a conical with some insulation on it, and just change the ice out every now and then and run it with a thermocouple on the conical, and it'll pump. It'll keep it cold.
Do we have the equipment to make that? Because that is,
we do.
I say this.
That's what I'm using on the secondary. But
I say this too often.
Instead of the ice, we use the chiller.
I say this too often. That is the video we got to make, because we get this question so many times that people are going, "I want a lager, but I just don't like. I don't have like the means of doing it right now." Because everyone thinks you got to have a chamber for it, right? Either a dedicated fridge for it or like tops.
I mean, that's ideal, but if you don't have that, you definitely have to insulate the conical, and you can't use, I guess you could use a glass carboy, but I wouldn't. I would get a stainless steel
a brew bucket.
Yeah, just anything that you can put some insulation on.
Yeah.
You know what I did? I went down, got some spray foam, and spray foamed the conical that I had.
Yes,
and it'll hold within just a few degrees of the chiller.
And I only laugh because it's just Pizza the Hut, right? Is what it looks like. But
that's what it looks like.
But it's perfect in implementation, where it's like, who cares what it looks like? This thing's holding temps, and it holds it good. The Blickman, that ferminator is like your old reliable in that brew room, where like, what's the lowest you got it down to? Like 36?
I got it down. The chiller will go down to 28, and I got it to 34, I think, or 33.
Holding at that.
But you got the way you do that is you have to have, that was when I did the 18 gallons of Kolsch. And if you do 18 gallons, that's a 27 gallon conical. Actually, it's a 42 if you put the hat on it. you have to have at least 18 gallons because that'll completely submerge the coils. The coils need to be a little deeper into the conical, but it is very efficient.
I like this idea. We got to, we have a spike, the Flex fermenter with stainless. I know obviously it would work with the glycol setup because it's the Flex Plus. But
that would be ideal.
But we could do your
insulate it. And
exactly. I say we could do a video with showing that. And I think we have, just for video's sake, we have a brew bucket.
Wait a minute. Who's paying for the ice? That's what I want to know.
Is it a lot? Well, so let's walk this through. How, I mean, you're talking for the video's sake, we'll just show the setup. We're not necessarily doing it with real beer. We're just going to show how to do it. We don't have to keep up.
No, we have to do it. If we're going to do it, let's do it with real beer.
I don't know why we couldn't use cold packs, a bunch of cold packs in the,
like your old,
that would keep the ice from clogging up the lines.
Like your old, not quite like your old tub setup, but similar to where you just change them out, right?
Yeah, and then I could go to Walmart and get, a couple dozen of those blue packs, throw them in the freezer, and then that would be your routine every morning is to change those out, and every afternoon change them out. The pump is regulated by the temperature probe, so it's going to turn on when it needs to.
So if we do it,
the only thing would be you would definitely want to have it chilled down before you started the circulation, because if it wasn't chilled down, you would go through a lot of ice or a lot of cold packs.
We will either. So Todd, I can do that. If we do a 5-gallon batch, I can do that here, and that would be the ideal way.
Yeah, then you and your dad could pay for the ice.
Well, I'm only saying that because you don't brew in 5-gallon batches, and then that would be a chance for me to not get yelled at by you because they're like, "Oh, you're doing the video." Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
No, I still want you to brew 10 gallons. I only want you to put 5 into that conical.
We will figure out. So do you think, like, we do this video, we do this setup, that could be something like Zach in Florida or people in warmer climates like what we're doing could feasibly get away with lagering without having to find a chest freezer? Because what I was getting at when I said not everyone has them lying around, try to go buy one right now. Now, if you find them, they're marked up incredibly high. And even the used market in Austin, they're not readily available. And the ones I've seen, they're expensive. That $5 bet I lost to you, Todd, about what you paid for your chest freezer, I would have been right if we had fast forwarded to today's prices. I would have been correct because they are incredibly expensive right now, if they're even in stock. You go to Home Depot, you go to Lowe's, in my area at least, and I can't find any. So even if Zach had the ability to have the space for a chest freezer, maybe he can't find one. But I like that idea, James. I think a video would be a real good.
It would be fun to try out and then document it, and also see what the cost would, because you can find a cooler just about anywhere.
I was just say the coolers. I mean, you're talking about a little bit bigger than a Lunchmate sized igloo, right? That's the one that you have in the brew room, at least. It's not like this big chest.
Well, I did that as a reservoir that would also keep the water cold, because you got to remember we're using a chiller for the cold to chill the water.
You're right.
We just used an existing coil circuit that's submerged into a bath of ice cold water.
Totally. You're right.
So we use the pump to pump into the cooler as a reservoir, and then in turn it gets pumped through the coil and then dumped back in there.
I remember that now because you're already using glycol. Yeah, so I would need a bigger one just because we're not going to have a glycol system doing the cooling. It's literally going to be the ice or ice packs or whatever.
You would need a cooler big enough for the given batch of beer, because there's also heat transfer to think about. Yeah. And I don't think it would be efficient if we used a little Lunchmate. I think you'd have to do something like our cooler brew or the orange drink coolers that you can get at Walmart or Home Depot. That would probably work.
Do me a favor, if you can. I mean, I don't want to take up too much of your time after the show. Send me a pick list of what would be needed, and I'll include it in the show notes because this is publishing tomorrow. So I have the time to actually include the things I say I'm going to include, which sometimes I forget. But I'll include it in the show notes, and then I'll also build off of that I would get those parts so that we can do the video. Because I think if you just tell me as well what we already have so I don't over purchase, but I think that'd be a great idea because Zach's not unique. No offense, Zach. I'm sure you're a special person and people love you, but he's not unique in this situation that a lot of people tell us, like, I don't have the means of lagering, where maybe we can show them, well, you can for reasonably priced, and here's how you do it. It might be a little bit more elbow grease required to make it work smoothly.
Some assembly required, sure.
But if it can be done and be done right, or be done good, or be done the correct way, then man, that opens up a world of possibilities for a lot of people who listen to this show who have just felt like there's this wall between them and loggers,
or there's a space issue in an apartment, or
right, totally. But your situation, I mean, it's not a permanent setup, and it's not going to be terribly big. Larger than it's not going to require an appliance. I guess is what I'm getting at, like an appliance size solution. It'll be smaller and more compact. Todd, you're on board with all that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Oh, because when I said I was going to pay for it, I meant I was going to use your credit card. But we will find a way to get this video done.
But I mean, again, I'm not paying for the ice though, right?
No.
Because I'm figuring, how long are you going to lager for?
2 weeks.
Okay. Hell, I mean,
I'm kidding. I don't know, 4 weeks probably. Like what?
4 weeks.
Yeah.
So let's just say 30 days. And how much do you pay for ice there? You got one of those ice things.
We do.
Here, it's 20 pounds is $2.
Right.
20 pounds is $2. You're going to use 20. So it's going to cost you $60 or maybe more.
What James was saying though, those ice pads. I was going to steal a bunch of your ice packs.
those are fairly expensive too.
Yeah, they are. They're like what?
It's not ideal, I understand, but for somebody that's got a little apartment that maybe doesn't have the space for another appliance to go in there and wants to throw something together. We're also talking about a 5-gallon batch for most people.
Yes.
Maybe it's probably going to cost a little money down the road, and maybe it's not ideal, but it might be ideal for somebody in a certain situation.
Exactly. And
you could always, what you could do is get a chest freezer and then make your own ice.
Yeah, you definitely could do that.
Yeah, Todd,
get some ice trays.
Yeah. Todd, you were such a jerk, dude.
Hey, I just looked because I was curious about the freezer situation. It may be getting a little better. They have, so I know people on the show don't know this, but Marble Falls isn't that far away. Home Depot has 2 different versions around $200 there right now.
No way.
Yeah.
So
they may be starting to, they're not going to be out.
Hey, Zach
forever.
in Florida, why don't you come to Marble Falls and get yourself
stop by, have a beer with us.
Stop by, have a beer with us. I'm going to look at that. I would love to have a chest freezer at my pop's place for the, better serving or just more. I think what I'm trying to convince my dad of, and like James was saying, this might be good for people in certain situations, and it might be the thing to encourage you to buy the solution that's not such a pain in the butt. What?
Get
and
if you just want to mess with it, I mean, that's definitely an option.
Yes,
maybe not ideal, but
it'll encourage you though to want to get the conical fermenter and a glycol setup. That'll be
if you had your first beer that was a lager, you'd be like, God, I like these.
Yeah. Or if I think, golly, have we done the lemon drop pilsner? We did recently this year, right? For Patreon. That's why you brewed it. Didn't we do the lemon drop?
I think so. I think we did.
I think we did. And I'm a huge believer now in Pilsner again. And not that I never was, but just it was so smooth, dude. There at the ranch, I was actually drinking a lot of his honey rye ale, believe it or not.
Oh, but, that was what I got from him yesterday. Todd's always great back.
It's so good now. It's really
it's toned down. It's not as rye-y.
Yep.
I know that's not a word, but it tastes so much better.
So going back and forth between that rye and then your lemon drop, it just made for a really good night. And then
I made salmon last night. Sorry, I cut you off again. Lemon butter salmon paired with lemon drop pilsner, the bomb. I even brought my mother-in-law and my mom one. My mom, God. Can't believe I just said that. My mother-in-law and my wife won, and we all had the paired salmon with the paired lemon drop. It was very good.
I saw that Instagram post. It looked so good.
Yeah, I saw it too, jerk. I leave and you do that. Thanks for telling me.
I'll let my wife know that you didn't like the meal she made.
Oh crap. Okay, I just stuck my foot in my mouth. I'm gonna edit that part out. No, I'm not, because I'm lazy. Hey, before I wrap it up, look, my dad just texted me. It looks like we're gonna be brewing. Look what he put in the wall.
Oh, cool.
He put the correct setup for the spike. Oh man, my lighting's bad enough.
It looks like he didn't make an adapter. He just changed the plug.
He did.
out.
He did. What a man.
That's what I would have done. Yeah, that makes total sense.
What a man. So it looks like we're brewing on the Spite Solo. Hey, it's
Cool.
going to be a good weekend. But anyway, Zach, thank you so much for submitting your question. Again, reminder, since this is one of the longer shows we've done because we're doing 4 questions.
And because you talked incessantly during every question.
And you interrupt everything I say. If you submit a question and we take it on the air, we give you a $25 gift card to techconnection.com. So thank you again. Gentlemen, you're right. I blabber on, but I think this is going to be well received because this might be the first episode in a long time where the majority was actual content and not just me.
Yeah.
Which,
oh, by the way, I looked and you can buy a 10-pack of those blue gel ice packs on Amazon for $13.
oh, see, that's the solution, Todd. I'll buy 30 of those to get to the 60, but I'll just reuse those every few. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
And then you can use them the next time you do the same thing.
Yeah, because I can't save ice.
Yeah. That would work.
Or be resourceful. When the ice melts, I throw it back in the freezer and then I reuse
Well, my dad,
it.
my dad, when I was growing up, he never bought ice. I mean, every once in a while on a long trip, he'd be like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to spend 69 cents because that's what it costs then on a bag of ice. But boy, I mean, he always made his own ice, big chunks of ice we would break with an ice pick. He was cheap, man. He never bought ice.
I'll tell you what I did. When I was doing the ice bath in the closet, I got the really heavy duty freezer bags and I just filled them up with water and threw them in the freezer.
Exactly. See, resourceful as humans.
And that worked just as good as a gel pack. In fact, I think it worked a little better.
And listen, I totally agree. I understand what you're saying. But if I give Josh my credit card, he's not going to do any of that crap.
Nope.
He's going to go buy $60, $70, $80 worth of ice in the course of
I'm just actually going to buy a commercial beer, put it in bottles, and or take off the labels, put my label on it, and pocket some money. I mean, you know me too well. It's almost been 13 years with me. Anyways, guys, that does it for this week's show. I thank you so much for your time and obviously your expertise. I'll see y'all soon.
Thanks.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, homebrewsupply.com, for supporting us and the homebrewing community. Save 5% off your order when you visit homebrewsupply.com and use our promo code HHH. You can also get even better discounts when you join our Patreon by visiting patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.
This program is made possible by the checkbook of Mr. Todd Burns and by contributions to our newly launched Patreon by viewers like you. Visit patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and join our community. Thank you.